Yesterday there is an interesting article in Indian Express, so we'll try to discuss the same. No, that is a user. We will discuss that article as well. But if you see the heading of this particular article, what do you understand?
NPS related to farmers should be shifted to bad banks.
Should be shifted to bad banks. So technically there is no such thing as bad bank, right? The official terminology is asset reconstruction company. Now, all of you know, agriculture in India has been destroyed during the colonial rule. Yes. So the government tried to support the farmers in various measures. Almost all the related to agriculture are receiving subsidies. In spite of all these things, there is a huge amount of debt in relation to agriculture. Almost all the farmer households in India have debt. Apart from this, there is one more scheme called as interest subvention scheme. I hope you know what is interest subvention scheme. What is interest subvention?
Yes, sir. Runamafi. No.
That is loan waiver.
Loan waiver.
Runamafi is loan waiver.
Yes, sir.
What is interest subvention?
So there is interest 5%. 2 will be by government, 3 will be by the farmer.
That is not technically interest subvention. Interest subvention, you can technically say that, but normally speaking, let's say the initial interest to the farmer is 5%. If you are paying on a regular basis, you have paid 6 installments or 3 installments. After that, the interest rate will be reduced to 2% or 2.5%. That is interest subvention. That means because of your fiscal discipline, right? The discipline that is developed in the farmer, he will get the cheapest interest loan out there. But in spite of all these things, even today, 50% of the loans taken by the farmers are from middlemen. So financial inclusion has not happened totally. Now, where did the entire thing change? The entire thing had changed because of 2 things. One is lack of insurance. Earlier, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana was introduced recently, right? Before that, the farmer will take unexpected vagaries of monsoon. Yes, unexpected rains or droughts or anything can happen and the crops are destroyed. So the farmer is not in a position to repay back the loan. So that is one for NPS. But honestly speaking, the NPS of farmer sector has increased because of populist measures. What are populist measures? Just before the election, you will announce something called as loan waiver. Loan waiver. 30,000 crores taken as a loan by farmers of, let's say, Andhra Pradesh or Telangana will be overnight wiped out by government. The government will say, if we come into power, you don't have to pay loans. They will be voted into power and they won't pay, right? So that is an NPA. Technically speaking, it's not NPA. Why? Government has guaranteed that I will pay. When will government pay? Someday. Government will pay someday. So the 30,000 crores to be now in the very good source. Why? Government of Andhra Pradesh promised 30,000 crores. It will come one day. But that 30,000 crores is more or less gone. What if there is a election and the government did not announce farm loan waiver? Just before the election, the farmer will stop paying the installments, even if he is in a position to pay the installment. Okay, he expects that the government or the opposition party to announce farm loan waivers. So that is also creating NPS. Let's assume both the parties are not in a position to give farm loan waiver and they didn't announce it. So that all that becomes NPA. So like this, there are so many things. So considering all these things, they are considering a new concept called as bad banks for farm loans. What will be the ramifications? We look at some data. So it's not a union problem, right? Agriculture is state subject. More than 11 states in India, or at least 11 states in India has announced farm loan waiver. Collectively, the debt will increase. That's a huge problem. And if you see the NPA ratio because of agriculture or in agriculture sector is around 10%. That means 10% of the loans given to agriculture sector is not coming back normally also, right? Even if you go to banks now, banks are not willing to give to farmers. So that is why agriculture is kept under priority sector lending rates. Next, there is one more thing, increasing debt. there is an increase in average debt of the community. So that's an important value addition, 74,000 rupees. Even as a percentage of agricultural households who are in debt are coming down, okay, the average debt jumped to 74,000 rupees. So on an average in India, an agricultural family is having 74,000 rupee debt. The other day I was showing you an Ashok Bharati article, I think, a Damodaran article, I guess. There was an infographic. It shows 90% or 95% of agricultural households in Andhra Pradesh have debt.
Yes, sir.
So it varies from state to
State.
state also. In spite of all these things, Punjab and Haryana farmers also are having good amount of debt. So considering all these things, what will be the ramifications? What will be the ramification of debt? Because asset reconstruction companies are just an eyewash, right? It's just moving the money from one pocket into another pocket. It is to show the books as clean, but you are not addressing the root problem. You are not solving the root problem. So better implementation of Pradhan Mantri. Air pollution is a severe problem and it has to have a long-term solution, not one-time solutions. His article, though, is very valid. He's specifically having a target that is the agricultural sector. So technically speaking, he is one of the proponents of the three farmers bill. The three farmers bills are revoked. So he's trying to bring in the same agenda onto the platform. I totally support him in that thought process. Like we have to move away from this paddy wheat culture. Crop diversification should happen. More people should move to renewable energy. So when he talks about solar trees, we should also talk about the grid capacity. We should develop that capacity to purchase from the farmers. Farmers should be incentivized. Yes or no? Do pilot projects. More the pilot projects, the better the adoption. See, in India, the piecemeal approach always works. Why? You take Haryana, one district in Haryana, you empower 100 farmers, set up solar parks or solar trees, and let them sell the electricity that they generated to the grid. Okay, it will put some amount of money in the hand of the farmer. You don't have to do anything. After that, everything will take place on its own. All you have to do is be the facilitator. Yes or no? So that is one way to approach. Delhi, our central government and everybody is moving towards electric vehicles. If you see right now in the roads also, there are a lot of electric vehicles. Nobody is actually pushing towards the electric vehicles. The change is happening slowly. People are, consumers are aware, right? Plus government incentives like lack of, or less amount of road tax or insurance. So that is also nudging people to buy more and more electric vehicles. So the best solution for Delhi, if you are really bothered about air pollution, is to vacate Delhi. Yes or no? I mean, it's a radical solution, but move all the government away from Delhi for certain amount of time. Reduce the pressure.
Will it not create extra burden?
Why?
Financial burden.
Why financial burden?
If you move the, how can we vacate Delhi?
Not people, governments.
Yeah, government.
So you will have alternative capitals. You can develop better solutions, right? See, you need to have, we have to understand the geographical phenomenon of Delhi. Delhi is never going to be clean, right? There is no flow of air. So we cannot blame only agriculture or a lot of things, and we cannot vacate the population. So try alternative mechanisms. Try to develop that, sponge cities. Invest in the infrastructure. Till then, you can reduce the burden as much as possible. Right now, we are constructing a new parliament building and all those things. That is also just technically speaking, right? So that will add burden.
Yes.
Till it is completed, it will add burden. After that, let's say we have to create sponge cities or more water logging bodies. More water bodies, the lesser the pollution. So how do I create water bodies in Delhi? Either I have to revive the old mechanisms or I have to create alternative ponds everywhere that is available. So reducing the burden is one thing. The satellite cities, Dwaraka, Gurgaon, Noida, it has to be spread. But the problem is from Punjab all the way till Kanpur, the entire North India will be covered with blanket of pollution. It's not one state or one city problem. So you get the macro idea, right? So again, till 2050 only, right? See, Beijing has done that. Beijing actually tried to reduce the pollution as much as possible. They have sincerely tried a lot of things. So we have to learn a lot from Beijing or other international capitals as well. But comparison, except for Beijing, is not worthy. Ottawa and all these small cities, they're hardly the size of Karol Bagh.
Yes.
Yes or no? The populations don't match. Delhi has a huge floating population. Yes or no? 2 to 3 crore people in one particular area. We cannot even understand how to control all that pollution. Then we have coal plants in and around Delhi, geographical phenomenon in Delhi. Stubble burning is one reason, but construction, dust, pollution, old vehicles, huge. 20, 30 departments have to come together, sit in one discussion table and solve the issue in 6 weeks. Like finalize the solutions in 6 weeks, then implement them also. It's not possible. Yeah. So, or we can have X number of buses, more and more public vehicles. Carpool lanes, I told you, right? We have to have dedicated carpool lanes. But will it work in Delhi? We have metro in Delhi, but you will not, even space to enter into the Delhi metro. Every 30 seconds there is a metro. In spite of that, the doors will be fully jammed. You will have to fight yourself to get in or get out. So increasing the number of road transport, public transport, a drastic change has to be brought in. The more the public transport, the better the connectivity, probably lesser the pollution. So it's very easy to say air pollution is because of stubble burning or one thing, but tons and tons of things are there. Okay, we will accept Delhi. What about this fact? Okay, Delhi, I accept stubble burning. What about the rest? Same only. He will list out the same, starting from Pathankot to Kanpur. The same chain of cities. Behavioral change. People has to realize we need to buy money plants, indoor air purification. Oxygen breathing trees. We have to plant more oxygen breathing trees to reduce the air pollution. It will work. During COVID pandemic, second wave or first wave, people to sell these things, right? Oxygen plants, indoor plants, have more oxygen plants, will have pure air. Now to a better article. Resetting Putin's red carpet. Now, all of you must be aware that there is a 2+2 ministerial dialogue between India and Russia. So, what is the significance of this particular thing, and how do we balance the relations with all the countries, all the stakeholders involved? Who are the stakeholders involved, or what is the context? Here, Russia and India are trying to showcase to the world that we are good friends, we are close. So we have strategic dialogue, we are strategic partners, we are all-weather friends, not all-weather friends, but we are very good friends. Yeah. But whenever we hear about Russia, the first thing that comes to mind is weapons. India is having nearly 60 to 70% of the weapons
From Russia.
originated in Russia or technology developed in Russia. So we were heavily dependent on Russia. So if you go back into the history when USA was against us, even then Russia was very supportive to us. Okay. So Russia and India are good friends. Now things are being changed very drastically. Russia and China are becoming good friends, whereas India and USA are becoming good friends. So how do you balance all these relations? What are the common areas of convergence? What are the areas of divergence? How do we balance the reality, real politics? Now, the size of the economy, if we take Indian economy, is much bigger than Russian economy. But the name of Russia is much bigger than India. So Russia has this perception of being a great country, once a great country. So the perception is managed. So Russia still thinks, just like Indians think India and China are one, right? India and China. But in reality, India and China. Size of economy, capacity, potential, whatever you take, India and China. But the same is with Russia and USA.
Yes.
Once upon a time, it used to be China, now Russia. But they want that hyphenation. Just like Indians love hyphenation with China. But we don't like hyphenation with Pakistan. India, Pak. No, India, Pak. Yes. So this is more about perception, right? It's all about perception in international relations. Now, why is India trying to pacify Russia? Why is India having a interest to maintain that relations with Russia? We no longer need Russia, technically speaking, right?
Yes, sir.
We have France, Israel, USA. We have Atmanirbhar Bharat. So now we will move away from Russian weapon dependencies sooner than later. So why do we need Russia?
Afghanistan.
Mhm.
China, we keep a check on China.
To keep a check on China. How?
Because the relation between China and
Hmm.
Russia
Hmm.
growing trade. So
Hmm.
India being friends with Russia might keep a check on China.
So hypothetically, in let's say a reality check, if India and China are decided to fight, do you think Russia will support India? Normally speaking, okay.
Sir,
Mhm.
the trade potential is so huge that it is so far unrealized with Russia.
So what makes you think that China will give us that breathing space? Whatever we can export, China can also export.
Yes, sir. But Russia also knows that unilaterally depending on China will not benefit them in long run.
Mhm.
So they have to diversify their stakes. I believe is their stand. So India can help in that way. So even by Make in India.
Mhm.
So there is the A27 Namiti. So we are bringing Russia to have stake in India.
Mhm.
So when they have stake in India, when they have more stake in India, then they tend to support India in times of difficulties.
Mhm.
So in that way, uh, so in helping Russia diversify their stakes,
Mhm.
we are improving our relationship and also maintaining strategic autonomy.
So we were hesitant in buying some weapons from Russia. Apart from S-400, we were not so sure in buying some weapons. So immediately Russia started selling the same to Pakistan, right? So Russia is export dependent country. Russia has two things to export. One is oil, the other one is weapons. So when you are not buying, I will have to find an alternative buyer. So there is no loyalty for Russia to not sell it to Pakistan. If it sells to Pakistan, Indian security establishment is under threat, right? So first we'll criticize Russia. We will take the negative stand towards Russia. Then we will take the positive stand also. Positive stand is for UPSC. Negative stand is for reality. Okay. Why negative stand? Russia and China have a very good long land boundary. Okay. And because of the sanctions of the West, Russia is pushed into the lap of China. It's not like Russia is willing to go towards China. It is the West that is pushing Russia towards China. That is point number one.
Sanctions.
Crimea, the annexation of Crimea. Sanctions means you are not supposed to sell buy oil from Russia. So Russian oil market is destroyed. Yes. Recently, Germany started importing oil gas from Russia. Russia, it was given as a sanction. Okay, I mean the waiver was given. So that means Russian economy is being choked by the Western countries unless it is in their benefit. So they want to slowly kill off the Russia. So Russia is moving closer towards China. Okay, and Russia is looking for potential buyers. So Russia knows there is a competition with Israel, France, US selling weapons, willing to sell weapons to even Pakistan. Okay, so that is also a threat to India. And China and Russia, share ideology.
Yes, sir.
They have common ideology also. And Russia is using China as a protector, right? See, the combined strength of Russia and China will be very hard to fight with. So that is also one security risk towards the Western countries. And if Russia believes that India is totally in the camp of USA, okay, they may not give us the same future benefits. Whatever the technological transfers we were receiving till now, we may not be receiving them in the future. Yes, and over dependency of India on one country for weapons is also not a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Let's say tomorrow, hypothetically, there is an issue with Russia. We need spare parts or something. Russia does not actually transfer the technology, right? Russia only transfers the weapons. It does not transfer the technology. That is a problem with India-Russia trade deals. So we not only should get weapons, we should also get the technology. That is a major hurdle. Clear? So in this sense, Russia has its own issues. At the same time, Russia do not have any future unless it is modifying itself. Putin is single biggest, threat to Russia on its own. Why? He is not allowing anybody else to grow, and he has totally made it into his own nexus, right? Pakka dictator types. So because of that, Russia is not having any future. They are not good in anything, at least at the present point. Every other country can create some alternative. Russia is totally dependent on weapons. How long will you be selling the weapons? Not forever. Second thing, oil dependency has gone. China have, sorry, USA have shale gas. European countries are temporarily using the LNG, but everybody is moving towards renewable energy. By 2035, probably we will have more renewable energy than dependency on oil and gas. So that will also kill off the Russian economy. So that is why Russia is trying to keep all the doors open as much as possible. And second thing, Russia clearly knows that it's very important as a neutral country rather than a biased country or a country with some alignment. Russia has seen the the negative side of being in the Cold War. Because of the Cold War, Russia destroyed its own self. America won the Cold War, more or less, technically speaking, yes. And America promoted democracy throughout the world, whereas Russia was confined to its own space. And even the small countries which were earlier aligned with USSR are also now broken down. They are having a lot of issues. So Russia knows that if I join one camp or the another camp, I will be a victim. So Russia wants friendship with every country like US, India, China. So Russia wants to be best friend of everyone. Russia wants strategic autonomy. Russia is trying to do that, but the Western countries are still having that scare of Russia. It's very hard to overcome the historical baggages, right? For Americans, Russia will always be that one country which is a threat to its growth. Okay, so American defense establishment have a negative tone towards Russia by default. Now, slowly, thanks to Joe Biden, they are looking the China at this in the same prism. China is the real threat to USA rather than Russia at this present point of time. Yes or no? Okay, so all these things have to be considered. So I'm just giving you a thought process. Now, see, what is it in for India? As I told you, if you think India's strategic autonomy, we need to develop weapons on our own. Probably we will be in that position by 2040.
Yes, sir.
Right? So if the same trajectory of India-USA relations continue, like the good friendship between India and USA continues, maybe by 2030 or 2040, we will have all the technology that USA has. So the technological transfers might happen. We will get stronger than ever. With the rise in China, automatically it is bound to happen. India and USA are supposed to come together unless USA and China decide to make the peace. Okay, so in this gap between 2030 to 2040, India has to develop that weapon indigenization, plus India has to grow its economy. When these two things happen, everybody will be friends with India, including Russia. We can give more money to Russia then. So by that time, Russian economy might collapse or come down. So we will have more money. We will be benefactors to Russia. We are rewarding the Russia for its own old ties. That can be one more thing. And people to people relations, bilateral relations with Russia has to develop, increase. But that is not happening at the present time, right? We hardly have any cultural context with Russia.
Yes, sir.
Can you think of anything? Not even in movies we see any relation with Russia, right?
Very few.
Have you seen?
But Buddhism,
How Russia and Buddhism, they will come to Goa. Russians will come to Goa, right? Or to some ashrams. Any cultural context that you can think of India and Russia? Any movie? Even in Seventh Sense, we have a villain from China, not from Russia, right? Russia. Okay. Okay. Brothers. Okay. Okay. So you understand the context, right? We have to struggle to even bring some significant discussion with Russia. So the people to people connect or cultural connect with Russia is more or less missing. But diaspora and all those things also have to be developed.
wish to pursue medicine in a easier way, they go to
Russia, China. It's comparatively cheaper, right? But again, they have to come back and pass a different exam. There are a lot of problems. So this is what Mr. Rajamohan tries to bring into the discussion. He says, Russian neutrality, if not support, is critical for balancing China in the East. Why Russian neutrality is very important?
China doesn't take Russia for granted. Very hard to
If from Russian point of view, whatever you are saying is from purely Russian point of view. From the Western point of view,
it's very hard to fight.
fighting both of them at one time, or fighting that alliance is very difficult rather than fighting China alone. Also, you are cutting the entire land route access to Central Asian countries. Yes or no? Okay, that is also one major thought process. Now coming to India, the green lines. This is Indian thought process. The friendship of India and USA is inevitable. Russians know this. Russians understand it because Russians do not have the alternative to the whatever USA is giving. Okay, that is one thought process. Now, India also knows Gandhiji's inspiration from Leo Tolstoy can be one link. Okay, accept it. The novelist, right? So he read Upanishads in Russian and German. So he inspired Gandhi. So the Upanishad connection of India has to come through a Westerner to Gandhi. So that's the linkage there. Okay, but coming back to the core discussion, from a Russian point of view or from Indian point of view, we know that China and Russia are becoming best friends because of the obligation of the Russia, not because of choice of Russia. If Russia had a choice to choose between USA and China, it will definitely choose USA. But who is pushing Russia into China's friendship?
USA.
Western countries only. So Joe Biden is actually trying to change that. But at the same time, Russians also have to change their attitude, right? Only when you reform internally, the external help will be appreciated. Probably leadership change in Russia might create that kind of scenario one day. But as of now, Russia is that country where it is using the best of all the worlds. It wants to take the help of USA, China, India, everyone, strategic autonomy. Next. So what should be done? BRICS, Russia is a member of UNSC, where India should also be a member. So using all this multilateral, trilateral, and Russia can struggle towards creating a better world. Yes. So and China is not our enemy. By saying that. So see, here we are doing two things. One is we are saying the Western countries that Russia is still our good friend. We are saying the Western countries that Russia is still our good friend. Just because I am having a 2+2 dialogue with Japan, USA, or Quad, and all these things, that does not mean I'm willing to give up my friendship with Russia. So that is in truest essence our strategic autonomy.
Yes, sir.
Or our non-allied movement. Just because I'm getting weapons from USA, I won't forget my old allies. So that is a very nice way to write or bring the entire discussion into context, that India is friends with everyone. India does not have any enemies, including China. China is also not our enemy. We are having some issues with China. So all these bilateral, trilateral, multilateral meetings will only bring more discussion or more influence of, or expanding influence of India. Yes, so that's one way to convert the entire discussion, and we have more to explore. Yes.
And the global India becoming a global leader.
Yes, India is already a global leader, right? So we don't want to be a leader. We want to have that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? So we want free and open trade. See, this is ocean. This is ocean. This is an opportunity. More potential, someone have more potential, I explore it. But we should have that fair chance to fight in the open. You should not manipulate this to get your own advantage. For example, Russian engineers, the Chinese engineers are already started exploiting lithium and other mines in Afghanistan. Okay, so the Chinese teams are already on ground in in Afghanistan with the support of Taliban, exploring the mines. So they want to extract as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and some money will be given to the Talibans. We will have to see how successful this entire endeavor will be. So that is lost on India. We lost that opportunity, but we have stuck to our principles. Yes or no? You may have lost the war, but we may win the longer battle. That is what makes India unique. Yes or no? So that is what makes Chinese. Kind of. Again, if you talk rationally, yes, we lost the opportunity to explore the mines in Afghanistan. But tomorrow, if a democracy comes back into Afghanistan, we will also be the benefactors. We'll see how it goes. So in that sense, having good relations with Russia will open our entire channels with Central Asian countries. Yes or no? So Central Asian countries will be will be having access to them. So China cannot solely dominate all these countries. We can use the same relations to control Afghanistan also, or at least to stop any enmity towards Afghanistan or from Afghanistan. So there are a lot of ties. At this present point, not being in the enemy list of Taliban itself is an achievement. So we can achieve that by of Russians. So that is one way to look at the entire things. So we'll see the outcome. The outcome document will be uploaded, right? India, Russia 2+2 outcome document will be uploaded. They will have the summary of whatever they have discussed. You can use the same keyword, same data to justify your thought process. Nothing new in this particular article. Same old repetition, but it's one way to understand. Silence of an institution in the right time is also dangerous.
Yes, sir.
Having any problem? You're struggling from last 5 minutes to sit. You are very uncomfortable. Any injury? Sleepy? Any problem? Okay. You can ask them to give a normal chair, right? Or sit in the normal chair. So a docket full of unresolved constitutional cases. The first concept or the first para he discusses is constitutionalism. What is constitutionalism? The implementation of the constitution in letter and spirit is more important. Now, see the first para. Any breach of fundamental rights by the state has to be solved within 1 month. It is very utopian.
Yes, sir.
It is really impossible to solve anything in 1 month. We have waited for last 70 years for the Jammu and Kashmir issue to resolve on its own. So it was not resolving on its own. So that is when the present establishment has thought that, it's okay to bend some lines. Again, it's a sub judice. We cannot say whether they have bent the lines or it is totally within the lines. So 70 years is a good amount of time for anything to be understood. And 1 month is a too short of a time. But the thing is, the unlimited power of the state. It's like a elephant walking in an ant's colony. Yes or no? The sheer power of the elephant is unknown to the elephant because of its size. It will normally, even if it walks normally, also certain lives will be destroyed. Okay, so I have arrested a person as a terrorist. After 13 years, I could not prove that he is a terrorist. I was forced to release him. What happened to the 13 years of that particular individual? Who is responsible? So if you take the side of the state, you will say probably he's a terrorist. I didn't find enough proof. He was smart enough to hide his tracks. Or if I talk him from an individual point of view, maybe he was an innocent, really innocent person. The state wanted to just pacify the emotions, thrown him in the jail. Okay, now what is the truth? We don't know. He's a terrorist who is smart enough to escape the law, or he's an innocent punished by the process. Okay, the first scenario is understandable. The first scenario is acceptable in a way. Why? Sometimes these things happen if there are smart criminals. The other case scenario where an innocent is thrown into the jail for 13 years is very, very problematic because fundamental rights are fundamental rights for everyone, and it is a constitutional failure. Okay, so when a institution makes a decision, it will impact the lives of lakhs and lakhs of people, if not crores. Okay, and the delay, if computed in human hours, is huge. Vinita Sharma versus Rakesh Sharma case, best example. Should a daughter have equal property rights to father's assets when there is no will? That is the case. Supreme Court, I think in 2008 gave a judgment, 2008 or something, Vinita Sharma, Rakesh Sharma. The judgment is before a certain date, if the father has passed away, okay, asset will be distributed in the equal proportion. If the father died after a certain date, it won't be shared, or something opposite, or something like that. The thing is, in 2020, again, Supreme Court has to come and clarify no date business. Any date, whether if the father is not having a will, it will be shared between brother and sister equally. That clarification, simple clarification, took 8 years or 12 years of Indian democracy time. And thousands of people and thousands of cases and thousands of man-hour were wasted in this entire drama. Yes or no? That is a constitutional case, gender justice, or gender equality. Yes or no? So when you don't do anything in the right time, okay, even if you give a judgment after 8 years, it's too late. Yes, so that is what he calls as Pyrrhic victory. So the asymmetry of power between the state and the citizen is by default. Okay, and that is why we have fundamental rights. If you read polity NCERTs, that is what NCERT says. Fundamental rights are a limitation on the state, not on the individual, because the state is like that elephant. It has huge amount of power. It has to be restrained, and that restraints are nothing but fundamental rights. When they are being violated, we have to rectify it as soon as possible. Okay, but Supreme Court of India is not responding in the right time. That is a major criticism of this article. He cites certain cases like Article 370. Yes, electoral bonds, Citizenship Amendment Act, probably. Yes. Now, here two things have to be remembered. There are judicial precedents. Doing the right thing is always better than doing the easy things. Supreme Court of India has recently started doing the easy things rather than the right things. Two cases. One is Ayodhya judgment. The other one is Aadhaar judgment. Okay. So you are creating an identity card for 1.3 billion population. You don't have a legal backing. You don't have a legal backing whatsoever. You created the database. You have distributed the cards. You have started using that cards as an identity. So the system has already been set up. Then Supreme Court has taken up the case and it has said 99% of the population has already received the cards. So if we scrap the Aadhaar Act now, the entire process will be futile. The entire process will be futile. So let's continue. Okay, you understand the concept, right? That means first I have to do something, then I have to go to the court and I will say money will be wasted. Then the court will say, okay, what happened, from now on be alert. That is not how judiciary is supposed to work, right? Judiciary is supposed to say, if something is unconstitutional, it has to be scrapped from the start. That is when systems will start cleansing itself. I hope you got the idea, right? So in the same case, with Ayodhya judgment also, the judges did not even sign the judgment. Normally, all judgments are supposed to be signed. So the 4 judges presiding, they did not even sign which judgment was given by whom. So that is kind of evasion, right? Now, the thing is, when you are silent on certain things for a good amount of time, and when then you say something, okay, it is not going to create a impact. The future governments have learned a lesson, right? Aadhaar judgment, okay, that means first you have to do certain things. Create a digital health card or create a NFT mechanism. Then say people are already using NFT, then I will create a legal backing. That is not how things are supposed to work. Even if it costs the state a huge amount of money, manpower, some things have to be started from the scratch. Only then the system will have some kind of trust. The same is with Article 370 judgment. Tomorrow, if Supreme Court comes out and identifies it as an unconstitutional amendment also, then perhaps the same Supreme Court might say, anyhow, things have changed very drastically at the grassroots level. It will have national security implications. So let's not go back. Then there is no point. But within 1 month or 1 week of Article 370 scrapping, if the Supreme Court has intervened and if it has given a clear-cut judgment, whether positively or negatively, things won't change this drastically. Yes or no? 2019 August 5. This is 2022 already. 3 years have passed. Huge things have changed. There are international ramifications. We cannot go back. So that is what he's saying, trying to say as judicial evasion. That's the most important thing. Judicial evasion is judicial, what do we call as satisfaction? Not technical term, but think about it. Supreme Court has given a judgment on police reforms. Supreme Court has given a judgment on Armed Forces Special Power Act. These judgments are there, but are they being implemented? Then what is the point? Satisfaction, right? Psychological satisfaction. Okay, Supreme Court has spoken something about Armed Forces Special Powers Act. You cannot go for encounters. You cannot use excessive force. Okay, Supreme Court said something. Police reforms, Prakash Singh versus Union of India judgment. Government, Supreme Court has given some
Guidelines.
instructions. Anuradha Basin judgment. Government has given some internet shutdown. Government, Supreme Court has given some instructions. So are they being implemented? That is also a fraud on the constitution, right? So no, not giving judgments in time is one kind of fraud. Giving judgments in a later date is one kind of fraud. Giving judgments but not implementing is also one kind of fraud. It's like, you know, the Elabella concept of Kaushik Basu, the joker in the pack. We think we are playing in the game, but we are not actually playing.
So isn't it contempt of court not implementing the guidelines or
Definitely.
instructions? Then the court is completely empowered to take action.
Punish. It can call all the chief secretaries of the respective states and ask, why are you not implementing my Supreme Court guidelines?
But they don't mind to.
It is not calling them. It is not. See, they have to be thrown in a jail for contempt of court, right? Recently, I think in Telangana, a court has should arrest warrant IAS officers or someone for not implementing its rules. Okay, but it has also given 1 month time for them to submit their version of the story. So why are chief ministers or many states not implementing the Supreme Court guidelines? Why is Supreme Court not asking about it? When did Prakash Singh judgment happen? 2006. This is 2022. 15, 16 years have passed. What is Supreme Court doing? Right. So again, so if you read articles, it's nice. It shows that, you know, there is some hope in the country. Electoral bonds case also, huge amount of delay. And remember, it's not for BJP alone. Electoral bonds is advantageous to whichever party is in power. If tomorrow Congress comes into power, Congress will have a field day. If tomorrow BJP comes back into the power, it will have the field day. So whosoever is in the power will get all the advantages of electoral bonds. Okay, so like this, Supreme Court is complacent in a lot of things. The best case scenario is this article, right? This example. In 2013, the Guwahati High Court has said that there is no actual legal backing for creation of Central Bureau of Investigation. 8 years have passed. Nobody is bothered about CBI. Like this, if we take out all the judgments given by Supreme Court and which is not implemented by the government, the ratio will be really interesting. Lack of political will. So we will discuss about the repeal of Armed Forces Special Power Act tomorrow. It's one single article. We will try to link both the Naga issue and Armed Forces Special Power Act. Just remind me if we don't discuss. So this one is cuffed and collared. This is more about Myanmar, the junta. Yeah. So I think there is a particular North Indian state which is giving classes to Myanmar police officers on how to file cases. So Aung San Suu Kyi and others have been arrested on the case that they have breached the COVID protocol. Okay. Yes, if you see the red line, Aung San Suu Kyi, right? So she is the opposition leader. She is a Nobel Prize laureate. She was arrested for 4 years. Why? She breached COVID protocol in Myanmar. Okay. It's total partial, right? That means it's not even a case. Just because they are protesting, you file any case and throw them in the jail. We can see similar cases in a lot of Indian states also, right? You said something against the chief minister. No. You are a print journalist, you are using salt, you are using video recording. Throw them in the jail. Okay. So the here is international not about democracy being changed. And as rightly pointed out, US is hosting a summit for democracy. In the next week, US is hosting a summit for democracy, and US is not even interested in solving the democratic crisis in Myanmar. And what about the friendly neighbor, India? What is India doing? They are following Panchsheel, not involving in the internal matters of the other states. Yes or no? But technically speaking, China will have a lot of control on Myanmar if military is ruling. If military is ruling Myanmar, China will have a lot of control. So just like Afghanistan, we won't have any say whatsoever in Myanmar also. So India's neighborhood will be totally under the control of China, except for Bhutan and Bangladesh, as long as Sheikh Hasina is in Prime Minister. If Sheikh Hasina is removed as Prime Minister of Bangladesh, we will have new problems. Already Sri Lanka is gone, Myanmar is gone, Pakistan is gone. What is left? Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh. So again, Bhutan, okay, they don't have a choice. Nepal is also having some issues, right? Sometimes they are on our side, sometimes they are on China's side. So technically speaking, only Bhutan and Bangladesh are not totally in line with China. So that is also one issue we have to think. So democratic Indian government should persuade the Myanmar junta to give up this coup or military domination and bring back democracy.
What is the PO bond?
Which one?
PO bond, sir. So yesterday we came to an article where the Assam editor was put under sedition.
Okay, he was released under a personal bond.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a personal bond. He will guarantee that if I skip the bail or if I don't come back to whenever I'm summoned, you are given bail. So when the court summons you, you are supposed to show yourself. So if you are not showing, then you have to pay certain amount of money, and then you will be thrown in the jail.
So, just sometime back you said India is already a global leader. Now here in the region only we are not able to handle our neighbors like Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Myanmar. Then how is India a global leader?
So we can have issues with our neighbors and still be a global leader, right? A global leader here in the sense is not about domination, it's about a sphere of influence. So getting things done? Are we having still good connections with Sri Lanka? Yes. Bangladesh, yes. Bhutan, yes. Even with Pakistan, we are having a dialogue, right? We can get some things done in all these countries. That is sphere of influence. It's very complicated. IR is like, that, Telugu serials are South Indian serials. Who is on whose side? Who will be on whose team in the end? That Big Boss show, I think. It's like this. The ultimate objective is strategic autonomy. What am I getting out of this deal? What am I getting out of all these deals? So that is one thing to be discussed. Bharadwaj.